Hello, everybody, and welcome to part 2 of 3 of the catcher tier list that I am making. If you didn't watch part 1 yet, go back and watch that one. It goes through all the rules that I have for making the tier list and all the reasonings for why I'm putting people where I'm putting them and such. We're just going to dive right into this. Thank you guys for checking out the video and coming back for part 2. And let's start with the Texas Rangers catcher, Jonah Heim. So Jonah Heim is currently in his third Major League Baseball season. The first two were not very good. He wasn't hitting well, but he was playing defense really well. He was looking like a pretty decent backup catcher, but this year the Rangers made him the starter because they traded their starter, Jose Trevino, to the Yankees. So they made Heim the starter, and he's taken it and ran with it. He's been really, really good, both offensively and defensively. And honestly, if it wasn't for the first 2 years of his career being subpar, I would probably put him in A tier. Unfortunately, because the first 2 years of his career weren't that good, I'm going to move him down one to B tier. He's playing like an A tier player this year, but for the time being, I got to put him in B. That's just the way that's got to be for now. But if he continues his success, watch out for him to go into A or maybe even S tier. He's been really great this year for the Rangers, and I hope he continues his success at the big league level. So next we got Ryan Jeffers, who is the Twins catcher. And Jeffers is like a below average hitter, but an above average defender. He really fits well into this Twins lineup because they have so many good hitters, but so many bad defenders. So he kind of helps by allowing them to have a little bit of good defense in the lineup. So I'm going to put him in C tier. If it was only a defense-based tier list, I'd put him in B. And if it was only an offense-based tier list, I'd put him in D. So we'll just average it out and put it in C and call it a day there. Next, we have Toronto Blue Jays catcher Alejandro Kirk, the short king. Let me tell you, if you haven't watched Alejandro Kirk play baseball yet, go watch some highlights of this guy. He's so fun to watch. He's like 5'8" or something, and he's like 250 pounds. He's so small and so big at the same time, and it's hilarious. And not only that, but he is a phenomenal baseball player. I honestly didn't see the season that he's having coming from him this year. And he's doing so well that I'm honestly, I'm buying all in on Alejandro Kirk, and I am putting him up in the S tier. I know that this is really his first really great season, but his first 2 years have been good enough to make me say, yeah, this guy is kind of legit. I really like Kirk. You'll be seeing him in Los Angeles in the All-Star game this year as the starting catcher. He's an absolute blast to watch, and he's a really great player at the same time. Really like Alejandro Kirk. Need him in S tier. So next we have Andrew Knizner, who's been the backup catcher for the Cardinals for a few years now. And I wouldn't even call him the starter yet. Yadier Molina is probably the starter. He's just been injured all year, so that's why I have Knizner here, is because Knizner's actually played this season more than Molina. And he's been bad. If Knizner is supposed to be the replacement for Yadi after Yadi retires this year, the Cardinals are in for a bit of trouble at the catcher position. Let's just say that. They definitely need an upgrade there if they want to continue to be competitive after this season. Not saying that Yadi is good or anything, because I don't think that he is anymore, but Knizner is horrible. If I had to put Yadi anywhere, it would probably be in the D tier, and Knizner is worse than that. He's in the F tier. He doesn't hit. He's like average at best on defense. He just is, he's the total package of failure, and would put him in F tier with all these guys who are having very similar all-around bad seasons. For the Houston Astros, we have Martin Maldonado, and Maldonado's been kind of a journeyman catcher throughout his career, been mostly a backup, but he's actually found his home with the Houston Astros over the last few seasons as their starter. And the reason for that is that apparently he just has a really good relationship with all of the pitchers on the pitching staff in Houston. So he knows exactly what the pitchers want to throw and such in certain situations. And apparently that has been a really successful plan for the Astros over the last few years. I don't necessarily want to put him in F tier because I have so many people in F tier already. But literally the only thing that Maldonado does good is having a good relationship with his pitchers. He can't hit for the life of him. He's probably the worst hitter out of everyone here. And in terms of his defense, he used to be good, but he's like old now, and he's not good at defense anymore either. His pop time is pretty decent. I'd say his pop time's good, but that's the only thing he's got going for him statistically. He's incredibly slow. He doesn't hit. He doesn't defend. He's not that good. I don't care how good your relationship is with the pitchers. I'm not putting you higher than F when your stats are that bad. Moving on to Francisco Mejia, who's the Rays catcher. The Rays used to have Mike Zunino as their starter, but he's been injured, so Mejia has been taken over as the starter in his place. Mejia is not terrible. I don't think I'm going to put him in F tier. He doesn't do anything particularly well. The only thing that I'd say he does well is slug. He can hit the ball really hard, and he can hit the ball really far. Unfortunately, he has a severe whiff problem. He whiffs on the ball way too much at the plate. He doesn't get on base well enough at all. He never walks. So, where should I put him? Let's talk about his defense. His defense is all around average. He's average at blocking. He's average at framing. He's average at throwing out base runners. He does nothing particularly special behind the plate. So, for that reason, I'm going to put him in D tier. If he was better at defense, he could see himself move up to C. But because his defense is so mediocre and his offense is also not great, don't get me wrong, he's not terrible. He doesn't deserve to be here. But he also doesn't deserve to be here. D is like the perfect place for him to be. Him and Austin Hedges can hang out here, and it's perfect for them. So now we have Sean Murphy, who is the Oakland A's catcher. And I really like Sean Murphy. I feel like he's really underrated. He might be one of the most underrated catchers in all of baseball. And it's mostly because he doesn't hit that great. He's like an average hitter, but his defense is what really speaks loud. He is one of the best, if not the best defender on this entire list. He won a Gold Glove last year at catcher. That's not easy. There's always really good catchers in baseball. I think he is way better than people give him credit for. That average hitting with the well above average defense, I'm going to put him in B tier. The defense isn't good enough to get him up into A tier. Defense doesn't matter that much. It matters a lot, but it doesn't matter so much that I'm going to be putting someone in A tier simply on their defense. You have to hit a little bit better in order to get up there. But Murphy's been an average hitter with elite defense, and I think that's perfectly reasonable enough to put him in B tier. So Omar Narvaez has had an interesting career. He's the Brewers catcher now, but he's jumped around to a few different teams despite only be playing for 5 years, I think, so far. He's been all over the place in his career. There's been times when he's been a great hitter, and there's been times when he's been a terrible hitter. There's been times when he's been a horrible defender, and then there's also times where he's been an amazing defender. He's been all over the place with his performance, but the last couple of years he's really settled down into his role with Milwaukee, and what he's turned into is someone who's really good on defense and is pretty good at the plate. He's honestly really similar to Sean Murphy, and I'm going to be putting him in B tier right next to Murphy. Murphy's a better defender slightly, and Narvaez is a slightly better hitter than Murphy, but otherwise they're very comparable. And they definitely both deserve to be in B tier right next to each other. Next we have the New York Mets catcher Tomas Nido, and Tomas Nido shouldn't be their starter. James McCann is currently injured, and when he comes back he'll resume as the starter for the Mets. And Nito, let's just put him in F right away. I mean, he's just another one of these guys. He doesn't hit at all. You could maybe give him some credit for his decent defense, but at the same time, it's only decent. I would call it like slightly above average defense for Nito. He just doesn't quite cut it for me he doesn't get up into this D tier. His defense doesn't help him out that much. His offense is so bad, though. It's basically like having a pitcher batting as a catcher. He's pretty bad at the plate. And yeah, not much more to say about that. Hopefully James McCann comes back soon and can spark some life into the catcher position. All right, let's move on. We got the final two catchers of this part. Let's start with Austin Nola of the San Diego Padres. Austin Nola used to be really good. He had his first 3 years of his career where he was really good between his time with the Mariners and with the Padres. But this year, he has been not that great. Just kind of out of nowhere. Suddenly went from an above average hitter and above average defender to below average in both. If I had to base off only this season, he would be in D tier. But if I had to base off the rest of his career other than this year, he'd be in B tier. So let's average the two. Let's put him in C. We'll say he's an average player right now. Based off his track record, I can't put him in D. But also based on this season, I can't put him in B. So we got to put him in C. So for the last person of this video, we got Michael Perez, who is the Pirates catcher. Now, Perez was the backup going into this season, and Roberto Perez was the original starter for this Pirates team. Unfortunately, Roberto Perez went out with an injury early on in the season, and Michael Perez has taken over as the starter throughout most of this season. And let's be honest, he just hasn't done that well. He's hitting just like all these guys in F tier are, and he's defending not that good as well. He doesn't do anything particularly well, and he should be a backup catcher for one of the worst teams in the league, the Pittsburgh Pirates. Although I should give him credit, they're not that terrible this year. They are pretty bad though, and Michael Perez is part of that reasoning because he's their starting catcher and he's F tier. Sorry, Pirates fans. He's just not that good, and I'm sure you know it too. So thank you for watching part 2 of this tier list. I'll be coming out with part 3 very, very soon for you. Hit the subscribe button so that you can get notified when I make this, when I make part 3, that is. And we'll see how many catchers can we get into F tier. Let's get 10. Can we get 10? Just kidding. All right. Thank you everyone for watching. Have a great day. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.